Hey, all right, welcome everyone. I have the honor and privilege of having Amanda Porter on this call with us. She is an amazing person to know and to learn from. So I'm so excited for you guys to hear her wisdom and knowledge as she shares that with us in regards to emotions and essential oils. Um, and honestly, so I've known Amanda for about like a year and a half now that we've known each other,
Yeah,
somewhere
I
around
think
there.
so. Yeah.
And I learned about the connection of oils and emotions through her. Like I had no idea that that was a thing, and she taught a class that I went to, and I was just like amazed. I was like, I need that in my life. So I think it's an incredible opportunity for you guys to be on this call and watch this and learn from her. Amanda, do you want to introduce yourself really quick?
Yeah, I'm happy to. So I'm Amanda Porter, and as Brooke said, I teach about, essential oils and emotion and how aromatherapy can help us with our emotional, mental, spiritual life on all the levels of our being holistically. And I wrote a book called Essential Emotions now, and I wrote it under its original title, Emotions and Essential Oils, in 2011 with a co-author. And so I've been in this world for over a decade, and I continue to learn more every day from the plants and from the people that I work with. So I am just honored to be here.
Thanks, Amanda. Hey, just really quick, let's go over kind of an overview of what we're going to talk about just to get your brain flowing here. We're going to share about kind of our whys of why we're here, maybe me more specifically than Amanda. And then we'll go into the different processes of emotions and aromatherapy and kind of more the scientific side of it and how it works. So that's kind of just a quick agenda coming up. And let's just chat really fast. I'll just share my why, and then Amanda, if you want to kind of go into yours a little bit further. But
Absolutely.
when I heard about emotions working hand in hand with essential oils, it really triggered and like perked an interest of mine because I have family members who suffer from really struggling with their emotions and even processing them so that they can come across to other people as kind and understanding. Like when you don't comprehend your own emotions and you have a lot of things stuffed in, at least from my experience, you react. You don't respond, right? I don't know if Amanda, you can agree with that in that sense. um and I've seen that a lot, especially in the families and people that I know in my life and even friends. And so I was like, I need this and I need to learn about it, and so that I can share it as well and that I can help make a difference in the world, because I really think that the world is going through a mental health crisis, and this is an incredible tool to know and use in your own home, share with others, and really just share it with the world.
I love that, Brooke. I feel like everyone can feel that now, right? That ripple of struggle that everyone's having, like their mental health and what's happening in their life, and they're looking for answers and things that are sustainable. And my why is really out of necessity. I would say that I got into this world because I used to have like a corporate career and all of that, and I used to do some of this on the side as a hobby. And at a certain point in my life, it was undeniable that I had to like live my purpose and live authentically where I was being called. And I love the quote that the wound is the place where the light enters you, because that is through my own pain and through my own necessity for processing and finding solutions. That's where I also found my calling, and that's where I found my work. And so, I am the teacher, I am the student. I am constantly in this because I teach what I need. And so I'm just going to invite you to also show up just where you are, because there's no place that you need to be. We just are where we are. And hopefully there's some part of this that you can, attach to or resonate with, or find a tool or a help that might help you in your life to just be able to be a little bit kinder with yourself, a little bit more compassionate, a little bit more loving, and maybe just have some tools for you to help you process along your journey, because there is no right answer, there is no right place to be. So we're all just here together to learn. So I just want to set that stage. And we're going to talk about just how this process works so it can normalize it first and foremost for you, like why we have emotions, and what they do and what they're there for, so that you can work with yourself instead of sort of against the tide and fighting yourself. Because when we can get on board with ourselves, we can actually we can make a safe place and a home within ourselves. So I want to invite you to just open yourself to that as we go through some of these details. We'll have some science, we'll have some not science. So just soak it in and see what stands up to you as we go through this.
Hey,
Is there anything else you want to add, Brooke, before we
no,
jump
but
in?
Sydney made a comment to you, Amanda. She said, "Thank you, Amanda. This is what I needed to hear today." And I kind of just want to
Oh,
piggyback on that because it's like I'm telling you guys, when you hear Amanda speak, you're just like, uh-huh, tell me what I need to hear. Like you just speak so well, and it really is true. And I like that you said that just work with yourself, not against yourself. Like let yourself and your emotions flow, because emotions for me and my experience and what we want to share is that they're tools to help us, they're lessons to learn. They're not something that we should be ashamed of or should try to hide. And I think that has been in a stigma. And I know generations in past have said, nope, don't show your emotions. I've experienced that, don't let people see that. And I think that's farther from the truth, right?
absolutely. And that's
Hey,
why we talk about this. We talk about this to normalize it. We were all made with a whole range of human emotion. We're meant to experience all of them at different times, and they have different lessons, they have different purposes, they have different learning. And so if we can just look at our emotional responses as messages. What is it that I need to learn? What need is not being met? Where can I take this? Like, where am I supposed to go with this? What's the invitation? Then we can be a little bit more curious, a little less judgmental, and we can get ourselves to where we'd like to be, and honoring the process of who we are and the fact that we have emotions. So one of the things that I like to talk about right away when we're going to talk about emotions is this feeling that we all get, this overwhelm. Like, why is this so hard? Why do I feel like my emotions are getting the better of me? Why is this happening to me? Why can't I change it? And that's where we need to talk about patterns in chemistry, because this is where you need to give yourself a little bit of a break. Because we have in our brains these neural pathways, and those are well worn paths when something happens and we have a response. And then we end up taking that same response and that same thing over and over again. And it creates from like a little, dirt back road into like a concrete superhighway. And so the path in the brain, the brain loves to conserve energy. And so it will just take that superhighway again and again and again. And so we get these patterns that are basically automatic. And so it's not necessarily that you've made this bad choice or that you can't control yourself, but there's just been a pattern that's been set up in your brain for you to create a certain reaction. And then your brain just wants to choose that reaction as kind of the path of least resistance. And so it can get really, really hard to shift those, to shift that same reaction pattern once you get entrenched and you're kind of on that superhighway going down that train. Because a lot of this, which I'm going to talk about in a second, is in the limbic center of your brain. So you have, the emotional seat of your brain. You've got these organs that are trained to recognize that fight or flight response that's coming up from the back side of your brain and just react. And it's before the prefrontal cortex catches in, which is our reasoning, decision making, like let's slow down and think this through part. You have this emotional reaction. And so when you have patterns that are entrenched, your prefrontal cortex is the slower one to the party. You have this emotional reaction that's already started, like the train left the station, and you're in a pattern, and you're like halfway through this, and you go, "Wait, how did I get here?" And so I don't want you to go into shame or to guilt, because it's a very natural way for our brains that keep us safe, that conserve energy, and everyone has well-worn pathways that they'd love to shift. So if we can just start from that baseline of knowing that you're fine just the way you are. And the other thing to just note before we move on is that there's also chemical responses that go along with these patterns. And so our brain almost gets addicted to that chemical response. And so it's looking for that same hit of that same chemical. So if it has addiction to adrenaline, then there's a bit of drama, and it kind of rouses that response in you. The brain can actually kind of seek those things out to get that same familiarity again of chemistry happening. So that's why it can feel so hard and feel like we're kind of trapped in these things. But we're going to talk about the tools that you have and just kind of how the emotional response process works so that you can shift into things that are a little bit more productive.
I love that. I need more productivity in my life. All right, let's dive into the emotional response process. And Amanda's just kind of teach us about that and the different areas of how that flows into your mind and body.
Yeah, so this is again, this is a visual of a little bit more concrete of what I was trying to explain before. So what happens is you have all of your senses, your sight, your taste, your touch, all of that, your sense of smell, and that will create a trigger, not in a trauma trigger sort of term, but in just an initiation sort of a terminology. So something that you see, something that you hear. Think about how you react if you're walking down the street and you hear car tires screeching behind you. Like that is just a sound, but it's a trigger. And so it routes into our brain for interpretation. It goes right into the amygdala. And that's like you have that fight or flight. You have, is this a harm? Is this a threat? Is this okay? And that interpretation happens almost instantaneously. And you have an emotional response. So the screeching car tires, you've got maybe fear, and you've got the chemical response to go with it. Adrenaline kicks in so that you can run faster, get out of the way. And the physical response, right? Blood actually flows to your limbs so that you can go faster. Your heart races, your respiration speeds up. And so this is just how all emotions work. They take this pathway. So the trigger could be, something that your spouse said that when you interpret that into your emotional seat of your brain, you're thinking, gosh, I didn't like that. That's a threat to my sense of self. That's a threat to my ego or my identity. And so you have that emotional response, whatever that is for you. It could be anger, could be sadness, could be, a number of things, and the chemical response that goes with it. And so then you have the physical response, and you'll see your body language like shifting, how you hold yourself. You might start crying. That might be a response that comes from your body, or any number of responses. And so knowing how this works is key to understanding how to shift it. So you have your emotions, and your mood is kind of a longer state that you're in. Your feelings are all of those sort of responses that are coming in, whether you're feeling it with your senses or whether you're feeling it from inside of you. And then they end up forming these beliefs that you get. So when an emotional situation happens, what you decide about that is your belief. And then those are a lot of times those things that get, entrenched and get into more, I don't want to say destructive, but they can feel destructive, depending on which level they go to. So if your anger has gotten into a really destructive pattern and you're finding yourself out of control, that's because you've worn that highway so so wide and so deep that that's where you automatically go to. If your self-esteem has become so damaged because of your beliefs about yourself, again, that's a hard super highway to shift out of. So you have your sort of short-term emotional responses that you're dealing with, just reacting to people in the moment. And then you have sort of these super highways of response that are individual to you, about your experiences in life, the emotions surrounding them, and how, you're kind of trained yourself to react in those situations. So don't lose hope. This is how it works, but there is a way for us to work with it. So we'll talk about that next.
Okay, just really quick too, like I guess to kind of reiterate. So your emotions are those short-lived chemical responses, right? The things that are just happening in your brain or your body. And then
Yes.
your mood. So these they follow in line with each other. Is that kind of how you just explain that? So then your mood is like your state of mind. Your
Mhm.
feelings are something that you're aware of, or like your physical or emotional sensations. And then your beliefs at the end, the at end result is the result of our emotional experience and decisions that we've made, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
And so when you're looking at sometimes your short-term chemical response, which that's the thing is if we don't attach meaning to it, these are through our system in less than 90 seconds. And if we don't amplify them or attach meaning or do more with them, like they will fade from our system, like they're naturally meant to sort of calm down and return to homeostasis. A mood, though, is something that you're having this recurring emotion over a longer period of time. And so that kind of helps you understand like how these things play in to get these long-term beliefs and these really entrenched patterns in our emotional response.
Awesome. I love it.
So let's talk about how aromatherapy comes into the same
What
process.
one's starting first? Whatever one you want.
Welcome, welcome, little boys. So when you have an essential oil, so you've got the aroma molecules that are coming from, so when I have a bottle of essential oil, the reason I can smell it is because aroma molecules have left the bottle and they're interacting with my olfactory system. So they're binding to receptor sites in the olfactory system. And how this happens, so just like we said, we could smell, like you can smell something burning on the stove and have an emotional response. On the flip side of that, you can use smell because it is the sense that actually routes the fastest into the limbic center of the brain. And so it's a very primal, very necessary sense that has a lot of safety built in. And so we use aromatherapy to use this really fast entry into the limbic center of our brain for interpretation. So when you inhale that essential oil, as long as you don't have a negative, scent memory attached to this, that response is going to be positive for you. So it goes into the limbic center. There is a decision made. Oh, that's a good scent. That's helping me in some way. And then you have that chemical response. So it initiates the chemicals that follow. And so, you can get some relaxation chemicals happening. You can get some, calming chemicals happening. You get that emotional response that follows, where you feel a little bit more relaxed and just a little bit calmer, maybe brings you down from an 8 to a 4. And then you have that physical response. So your shoulders relax, your breathing deepens, your muscles start to kind of release a little bit. And we're going to give you an example of how this works with a specific essential oil. But that's why we use aromatherapy to intervene in our emotional response process, because we need to access the same channel that emotions are working with, and aromatherapy can do that. It can get into that same channel and change the chemistry and change the response. So the good news, I told you there was going to be good news. So it's not just that essential oils can get into this, but they can actually help you rewire your brain. So a lot of us have heard of the term neuroplasticity now. It's kind of getting thrown around more and more because, as maybe even in my parents' generation, they believe that once the brain was set, it was set, and you couldn't change. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. Who you are is how you are, and you just have to learn to live with it. And we know now that that's just not true, that our brains can rewire, they can adapt. They're that plastic, they're moldable. And so you can change your emotional patterns. Now, the deeper entrenched the pattern is, obviously, the more repetition it's going to take to teach your brain to take a different detour, to get off a different exit. But you can immediately interact and intercept things in the middle of when they're happening. So if you find yourself like building an emotional response, let's say it's anger, or you're starting to feel a lot of fear, you can actually grab the essential oil, inhale it, and it will redirect that chemistry because it sends a different chemical signal than the brain is used to getting. So it's starting to send that adrenaline, or it's starting to send, cortisol for the stress. And you inhale an essential oil, and then it will send a different message like, oh, wait, wait, curb that adrenaline, curb that cortisol. Let's start bringing this back down. We don't need as much of that, norepinephrine, and it'll start to intercept right there. And when you change the chemistry, remember, emotions are chemical. So when you change the chemistry, you change how it goes through the entire system. And so knowing that you can actually change is why we do our emotional work paired with aromatherapy, because together they create the synergistic response inside of our brain that helps us learn faster and remember longer. And so it can actually help you rewire your brain faster than if you were just doing the work alone without using an essential oil and activating that sense of smell and the receptors that go with it.
Okay, I have a question on that. So we've been told, I guess some have known this, that your brain isn't fully developed until you're around the age of 28 is what they say, right? How does that correspond with us? Because like let's take a foreign language. Like neuroplasticity kind of falls in that line that you're retraining your brain to like learn a whole other language, right? And it's common for children to grasp onto those foreign languages faster, but what about as in like an adult? You're saying we can change those pathways. How does that correspond?
That's a great question. And actually, it's why I love working with kids with essential oils, because I have another book about, emotions and essential oils for kids. Because one of the things I explain in there is that when the great thing about kids' brains is they're so malleable. And so you're not with adults, you're working on kind of pulling up cement sometimes and pavement and like having to lay down new track, and it can be a bit more of a process. There's more entrenched beliefs. You've been in this pattern for longer. It doesn't mean it can't change. It just means you might take a little longer. But when you're a young brain, especially a child, you're so much more malleable because they aren't yet set, right? So they can change, but they change a lot faster when you're younger. So you can just shift patterns that are happening very, very quickly because there's not the beliefs, there's not the years of entrenchment. And so, yes, the young brain is more plastic and more moldable. And that's great if you're working with your kids or someone else's kids or just children in your life in general, because they have a faster response and they can actually kind of stop those patterns before they get deeply entrenched. Whereas adults, yes, we're already kind of programmed at this point, but you can still change. It just takes a little bit more time to unravel than it does for children.
Okay, I have one more for you then, just in that sense, because there's this other, um, I guess maybe research has been done or whatever, that by the age of 8, you like have your beliefs set in your mind of who you are and what you believe about yourself. And the reason I ask is because I have an 8-year-old that has that mentality right now, that he's learned that, he says these things about himself that I'm like, okay, but you aren't that. Don't, you're a great kid, you're smart. But it's just, I don't know if he's learned it from school or other people, but he has it in his head that this is who he is and how he is. And
Mhm.
obviously that I do these, well, we can talk about that later, but like the breakthrough sessions with him and just working with him in emotions and oils. And that really does help with his mood and his beliefs of himself. But like, what would you recommend for a child that quote unquote has his beliefs set?
So the thing about that is to remember that the brain can change and our beliefs can change. So again, you have these competing schools of thought where yes, our sense of self is, our perception about our place in the world is set at a certain age where we loved? Are we safe? Are we good enough? Like those kinds of beliefs are definitely in there, and they've set up some tracks, right? Because we have those we made decisions by the age of 8 or 9 about where we fit. But having said that, again, all of those things can shift because the whole point of like cognitive behavioral therapy, it helps you change the way that you see things and you like start asking different questions and looking at things from a different angle. You're training your brain to see the same stimulus in a different way. And we're doing that with like when we go through, you mentioned the breakthrough process, or when we're working with essential oils in our emotional work, it's training. It's that same kind of training, a different modality, but you're actually saying, okay, we're looking at this belief that you have, and now we're going to shift that belief. We're going to look at the emotions. We're going to validate the emotions. We're going to see how this shows up for you. And here is your opportunity to change that, reframe that, believe something different. And so the things that are core to us are the hardest things to work with. And I believe that they're super important for our life's mission. So they seem like really challenging, hard things. But again, our mess is our message. And so those things that you struggle with are that's the invitation for you to overcome, for you to make them your strengths in life, for you to figure out how to make the world a better place for the people who struggle like you struggle. And that's where I feel like it's really important to not it's hard because we want to feel good and we want our kids to feel good and we hate it when they don't feel good. But we have to understand that just like us and like every other human here, they will have a story, and the story is where their learning is, it's where their purpose is. And so we just will learn to work with that and mold that and send that in positive directions, and they'll be better for it than if they didn't have that struggle to begin with.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. Let's go ahead and dive into the emotional properties and kind of the case study. I don't know if you want me to pull up the case study or just if you guys want to,
No, that's
I
fine.
can send
I
it out
mean,
later.
it's all you if you wanna go read the scientific language, we put a link there for you. Yeah, you can go get hundreds of these studies. So to bring it home about like a specific essential oil, to give you something really concrete, I wanna talk about bergamot because it has been studied so much. There are hundreds of studies about the benefits of bergamot for mental health. And so if we take that individual essential oil, like we talked about, the aroma, those molecules signal the brain to release dopamine and serotonin. So dopamine is primarily reward, and serotonin is that feel good neurotransmitter. And so that's why they're studying it for mental health. And so these are the happiness, feel good neurotransmitters, and they lift the mood and they reduce stress and anxiety. So those neurochemicals also send messages through the central nervous system, like we talked about, out to the body, and they signal that release of muscle tension, decrease of pain sensations. They regulate the heartbeat, and they just sort of increase that overall sense of well-being. So I put, a study there, but if you want to go to PubMed and dig around, you'll see hundreds of studies. And this is just one essential oil. Now, bergamot is the powerhouse for mental health, but now they're realizing that the unique chemistry of the essential oils interact with our neurochemistry in different ways. And so you have like the linalool in lavender, and that stimulates GABA production, which is a relaxation hormone that helps you get ready for sleep. Whereas bergamot and the citrus oils, they have that boosting, that energizing, that let's pump up some more happy chemicals sort of a thing. So you need that when you're having mood issues, low mood or anxious states, so that you can shift that. So you're choosing essential oils based on what you need. And there's a whole chemistry side of this. There's tons of case studies for different oils for different mood states. And there's also some of what I write about, which is the less scientific and more emotional, energetic side. So you have the plant medicine and what the plant medicine offers us. So just like each plant has a physical healing property, its individual chemical constituents, line up in such a way that it makes tea tree really good at being antibacterial and antifungal and those kinds of things. So you pull out, a tea tree oil that has, again, probably thousands at this point for tea tree of its chemical properties and what it does physically in the physical body. But then each plant, because of its unique chemistry, also has specific emotional properties. And they're better at different things, at different emotions, at different states. And their plant medicine wants to help you work through those emotional states. So here are some examples of the emotional properties. We put a few blends in here, but there's also individual oils. And that's from, these are excerpts from the book, Essential Emotions. But we talk about how the synergy of the chemical constituency and the different, in this case, in the blends, the different oils that are coming together will actually help you with specific states. So, Brooke, do you want to talk about like the different blends for different emotions to give everyone a sample of what's possible?
Yeah. So, like Amanda said, these are just kind of snippets of descriptions of each of the oils that can kind of support your body. And I just want to give a shout out to Amanda because she wrote these descriptions. She's gone through all of the oils from doTERRA and gotten to know each of them and what they support us with. And if you have this book, the Essential Emotions book, and all the descriptions, you can look up your ailment. If you have like a body part that is kind of irritating you or you're struggling in that area, you can kind of venture that direction to find an oil to support you. You can look at emotions and you can dive into the emotional aspect of, okay, I'm feeling fear, I'm feeling anxious, and there's multiple options too. It's not just like this is it. You can kind of navigate your way through which oil is going to help you the best. And there's some questions to kind of help you through it and whatnot. But so fear being the one that I grabbed out of there was brave. This is actually out of the kids collection. And I love that it does the exact opposite. It's going to give you courage, right? It's going to give you that uplifting emotion that Amanda was talking about. And then that adaptive that we love the most, at least I love the most, right? Is our calming blend. But it also, I think in that sense, like it calms the mind, but it's going to help you adapt. And Amanda did an amazing job at describing and making descriptions for this specific oil. I love how it talks about the way that it's going to help you navigate through sorry, I'm going to mute a couple of people here. Navigate your way through anxiousness. And I've actually reached for this one multiple times this week. And then another one that we just wanted to kind of share that's a big emotion is sadness. And I love that breathe is the option for this. And maybe you can kind of give us a snippet about how you've come to like really know these oils and find their true purpose and their true calling to support people. But like, with Breathe, there have been moments in my life or through sessions that I've done with other coaches that I'm like, I'm sad. To be honest, like I'm frankly just sad about this X, Y, or Z, right? And Breathe has been the one that's going to help me not feel so suffocated by that sadness. And it just helps you work through those emotions, and they're just incredible resources.
Yeah, I'm happy to touch on that. And like you said, there's kind of the long descriptions in the book, and here's a short overview of like each one of these, and why. And so the reason that uh, like breathe. So one of the things about grief and sadness is that it's stored in our lungs. So we end up storing our grief and sadness in our chest area and primarily in our lungs. And so when there's sort of the waves of sadness are overwhelming us, a lot of times we're having a physical response. And so this blend of Breathe that has all these amazing respiratory oils in it, they help us on the physical and the emotional side at the same time, which is really beautiful, because the sadness sort of stores in our lungs. It gets stagnant, it gets stuck, and we need help to keep it moving again because, sadness is productive unless it gets stuck and then it turns into something else. And our job is to kind of, like of the breath, keep it moving and we keep the sadness moving so we can acknowledge it and let it sort of shift out. But it's really helpful, like Brooke said, when you're feeling suffocated by sadness, when there's this overwhelm. Of that emotion, you can't really shift it. And so it helps to release it and just keep it moving. So it's not that you stuff it, it's not that you ignore it, but you just keep it in motion like you're breathing. So you breathe in, you breathe out, and you let that stay in motion. And then you begin to release it and be able to acknowledge it, and it'll help you shift it from getting stagnant in the lungs. Adaptive, we talked about those anxious states, and the cool combination of essential oils in there and the different chemistry are amazing for, again, bringing down that anxiousness. So you have fear, you have worry, you have tension, you are ruminating, on your thoughts. And so when you have like prolonged stress, though, if this is a state for you, it's a really great one to partner with because, again, it goes into those neural pathways of, anxiousness. And that when people start to get hypervigilant and they start living their life that way. And so emotion will speak to that as well as your neurochemistry, it'll speak to that. What's going on here? What's behind this? How can we help you adapt? How can we help you feel safe in your own body? And brave for the fear, there's some great like spices and things that are like, okay, let's get this going. And it really helps you kind of light that fire inside of yourself when you need to stand up and say something, but you can't say it. And that's why it's in the kids collection. I love it because it helps them speak up against things, like just get that extra oomph emotionally to be able to kind of make their power rise, let that fire rise within them to be able to speak up against things they need to speak up against and speak out if they need to speak out. And so to answer Brooke's other question, how does this come to me? Um, through a lot of different ways, actually. The ways that I receive information from plants and from plant medicine is almost as diverse as the plants themselves. So there are some like, high vibe sort of oils like a blue lotus, or these ones that are really upper chakra sort of spiritual kind of oils. And sometimes they'll come as like a straight download. Like I'm just starting to write, okay, wow, this is coming through from this plant. Other times you get kind of like woods and resins and like earthy grounding oils, and they'll come up as feelings through my body, and I'll have to like interpret those and give those more words myself. Sometimes oils will share their state with me that they want to help heal in other people, and so I'll have to embody that state when I'm working with the oil to be able to work through it myself and know how they want to help people work through that. And so it's a very intuitive, it's a very intense process sometimes, but and it took me a lot of time to build up my trust in myself to receive the messages of the plants, because I know that like for me it's a sacred privilege to be able to sort of transmit the message they have for the world right now, and that it's specific to the world right now. Like if they were sending a message about how they would heal even 500 years ago, it would have a different slant on what they were doing, but they want the world to heal. Like that's their purpose. And so I do my best to sort of capture some of the energy and messages of that and just put it down on paper so that people can work with those oils and shift them on that energetic sort of spiritual side as well.
I love that. So I want to jump back really quick too to like you were talking about the different emotions that you're feeling and how it can just be like an upfront emotion. There's a graphic and I should have shared it in here, but it's like an iceberg, right? And
Mhm.
we're taught this in our emotions and breakthrough process program and coaching program, but you only see a tidbit over the top of the iceberg, and how much of it is under the water. That huge iceberg under the water is your subconscious and what you're holding on to, and these can be emotions that are stuffed down from a long period of time. It could be trauma, it can be whatever emotion it is that you're feeling that's bottled up. It doesn't have to just be on the surface, and we only see so much of it. So when you really dig deep and you allow the oil to do the work and just trust in that process, you will see relief. And it might not come like immediately, right? It's not just going to be like, oh, it's all better, my trauma from my past is it's gone. You have to do the work. But when you put yourself in the position to do your own work and to work with the oils and to navigate that release, you will be able to feel that relief.
Absolutely. And the plants help us bring up the things when we're ready to address them. They sort of water the soil so you can pull up the weeds with the roots. So it has that ability to just bring up things when they're ready to be dealt with. And that's sort of the magic of essential oils on that level, because I can't explain to you why it does that. I've just witnessed it for so long with so many thousands of people that I know that they do that. And that's part of their unique medicine and their unique purpose. But that's why I encourage people to not just work with the chemistry and the science of essential oils, but also the emotional, energetic properties of them as well, because together they make something that really has no equal on earth for its like ability to try and help you heal. So it's a beautiful thing, and I'm privileged to just work with the oils.
Hey, do you want to talk really quick about the aromatherapy and emotions then?
Yeah, so I just want to kind of bring home some of the things that we talked about to just recap quickly. If there's any questions, feel free to drop them in and we can address those. But so, why we work with aromatherapy and essential oils with our emotions is because they literally change our chemistry. And we know from all of our information about mental health that it's chemistry that is affected, and it's chemistry that we need to work with. And so when you interject chemistry into your system that's chemical, you can get the kind of changes that you need consistently, and because it helps you rewire those neural pathways of response. So you can literally over time, and working with the oils and with your emotional responses, you can create literal change in your life, and your automatic responses can shift over time. They really can. And you can reinforce positive coping. So that's another thing that we probably didn't touch on as much as we could have. But when you start training yourself to be calm, or you have an emotional release, or you journal through something and you feel really positive, you can also sort of anchor those positive experiences with essential oils, and they'll reinforce that, because again that synergy is together of like, oh, I can do calm. Oh, okay, I can do release. I can feel safe feeling this emotion. And that will train your brain for positive coping as well. So you're not just interrupting negative, you're also reinforcing the positive, which I think is really important. And then again, as I talked about, you get to work with plant medicine and the gifts of the earth, which I think is really special. So I just want you to pause for a second after, kind of hearing this download of information, and just connect with what's speaking to you right now. Like um, what part of that was like, oh, I needed that, or I'd like to explore that. Just take a minute and just kind of sit with that and see what's speaking to you, because whatever comes up for you is where you need to focus next. So you don't have to be overwhelmed about mastering all of your emotions or choosing the right oil. Just listen. What's speaking to you right now? What thing do I need to focus on? And that's really all. So is there questions coming in, Brooke, that we need to address, or are we good?
No questions. Eden just said that she loves that reinforcing positive coping aspect. She says, I'm gonna grab an oil and smell it during my journaling from now on. I think that's a great,
Oh,
it really is. Even when you're like
absolutely.
meditating too, like just like that reinforcement, like you said, to those positive emotions and those positive experiences. I love that.
Well, and I'd love to just say, like, so when I'm working with my clients, so whether I'm training coaches, to do this with their clients or my own personal clients, like I say, feel into this, like what's right for you. But if you're going to be journaling, for example, sometimes you can choose an oil based on what you think is going on to help you actually get it up, to get it out, to facilitate, like, okay, I'm gonna use some breathe because I can feel the sadness. I'm not quite sure I'm connecting to it. And I'll put on breathe, or I'll diffuse breathe, and then I'll start journaling to really get to that sadness, to reach it. Then, so it depends on you. So you can kind of choose which one you feel like is best, or you can do both. It doesn't matter. But one of the things I always advise clients is that if you're journaling, when you get to a release, so let's say you're working through something difficult, and you get to that release where things just shift. Again, you go from an 8 to a 4, or you feel that release inside of you. You can take that big deep breath, or you come to this sort of epiphany moment. I also say grab an essential oil that you love and anchor to it in that moment, because that is going to help your brain really attach to that shift. Oh, I know how to shift. I know how to get there now. And it starts creating a new, neural pathway, that super highway that's positive. So I love that, Eden. You're totally on the right track. There's just two ways you can approach that. For all you journalers, am I saying that? Journalers out
Journal
there,
lovers.
there's ways to bring essential oils into it, whatever that word is.
I love that. And I think too, if you want later on, here, I'll just kind of wrap this up here on the next slide. If you want to reach out to me to get your hands on her descriptions in the Essential Emotions book, please let me know. I can get you a link to that book, because then you can do exactly what Amanda is saying, and look up different descriptions, or maybe look up an emotion you are feeling and reach for that oil that speaks to you, and then start implementing it. And that's the simplest way to do it, like just applying our oils, right? You don't necessarily have to dive in if you don't have the time to like do a full session or really work through the whole emotion in the moment, but just to find that release too while you're journaling, or let out all your emotions in one setting, is an incredible option. um I just wanted to share really quick that, like, I think if you're not in a space where you're like, I know it's this emotion, but you're also like, oh, I really like maybe the benefits of oils and how they impact our emotions. That Aroma Essentials collection from doTERRA, I think, is a great place to start, because it really does target different emotions. And there's just different properties and benefits from each of those. And that's what that QR code is on the screen right there, if you're interested in just starting simple with that. Um, and then on the flip side of it, we kind of brought up the breakthrough session, that coaching. And so that's a program that I went to, that Amanda was a part of creating. And what it does is it helps me facilitate as a coach to guide you through your emotions, and guide you finding that deeper root cause of what's bothering you, and help you process it, right? And find that release and that relief. And I think that's such an incredible resource. And Amanda, I'm so grateful that you were able to do this class with me, and also for the resources that you've allowed me to have to help heal and help other families and resources. So also, just really quick, for anyone that does want to reach out and wants that kit, I do have a current code that can get you a lavender touch free, which Amanda brought up as an amazing resource for that serotonin and that assist in giving that restful, calm feeling. So that's a great one to have on hand. But yeah, Amanda, did you have anything else you wanted to add as we finish up?
Well, I just want to say that I think it's amazing. Like, Brooke has really educated herself and expanded her ability to help people actually work with their emotions. So I just wanted to honor that, because it's been a privilege to work with Brooke and see her grow and expand and learn. And she has so much to offer. So thank you for inviting me today. I'm just happy to be here.